Hello, this is Gary, and I'm going to show you this new method. It's called double-sided injection molds. Um, I have never seen this done. I've done some research. I've watched plenty of YouTube's channels, and I just never ever seen this. It's always been the same way. And if you're new to what injection molding is, um, it's a way to basically make molds, and then you can make your objects quick once you have your mold. And you can also do it with aluminum plates and have them milled out for your molds. And if you don't know what injection molding is, you can look it up on YouTube. It's really simple to understand. And you can also do, most people are doing these 3D resin printers, and this is what I plan on doing. Not fully tested, but I don't see a reason why it would not work. Okay, and right up front here, okay, I'm going to go over an introduction just really quick for you, just to cover my, self here. Not to say this has not been done, but through my research, and I've watched a lot of channels in almost a year, and I've checked the internet, and I've just never just kind of seen this method ever done or ever heard about it. And if it has been done, you're more than welcome to post a link to some legit site that might have a video about it with a date on it, because I would like to know, because I've never seen it. But I just don't want to step on anybody's toes and saying I'm getting all the credit, and when the credit needs to be somewhere else. Because the internet's a big place, and I didn't even know that I was looking around. It could have been somewhere else. But I'm looking for a place that might be more legit, like YouTube or some other video sites, not some cheesy, somebody made up a forum and started writing some information later after I did this video. But besides all that stuff, I'm not going to get into that. Okay, right here it's called double sided injection molds. Okay, it's going to be less cost and more production products, more money saved and more money earned. Now some of this I'm going to be reading, well, actually I'm going to be reading all this, but I'm going to be showing some stuff inside. Well, you may find this video right off the start boring, okay? And I'm going to tell you something here. If you are into making money, saving money, and producing more stuff, I guarantee you, if you shut this video off and go to another one, sooner or later this will get around you, and they're going to be pointing you back to this video and say, hey man, you should have watched that. If you're into doing this for a hobbyist, you can make these molds with resin printing. That's what I plan on doing. I don't do the aluminum molds. They're expensive. I don't have access to a mill, and I'm not going to go out there and afford a bunch of money to have this done when it can be done cheaper. And another thing is, like I said, I'm going to be going over this in sections. I'm going to be pausing the video to give myself a break. And this may all sound a little confusing, but it's all going to come together to you here. So let me just show you really quick. And I'm going to show you what one of these would look like. Now, before you go off and just see this video and say, I see the double-sided, kind of explain a few things, I'm going to start making one. Now, before you do that, the way these things are stacked and some of the methods I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you, even though that they're stacked in, of 6, I'm going to show you how you can even make more by stacking them in a different order, or, more in an order, and you're going to get a way lot more than a small stack. It might sound confusing, but don't worry about it. I'll get to that in a second. So basically, just give you a brief overview of what a injection mold is. And well, basically what it does, these are double-sided molds. I made these here. I'm making a golf ball. I'm just making one golf ball. I could have made 4 golf balls. On this little example, I'm going to make it simple, so we're just going to use one. Basically, this side here on a regular injection mold, and this side here would be flat, and you squeeze them together. I got 2 half of the golf balls, and I squeeze them together. I'm going to be using a liquid type cool material just to pour in here, and it's going to get hard. Okay, what's going to be good about this? It's going to be more durable because it's not 3D printed, because it's not going to be built with layers. Another thing is, let's say I have 25 golf balls in a mold and I start pouring these molds. Well, it may take me a few minutes to make these golf balls, but if I was to print them out, I might end up spending 5 hours each time to make 25 when I can do them like way more than half the time. Alright, now with that said, I'm just going to pause the video and I'm going to go on the next step so I don't confuse myself. To make it understandable here, I'm going to show you something, okay? Now these are my double-sided ones, and in this first example I'm going to pretend these are not double-sided, okay? I'm going to say this is the old method on injection molds, okay? It takes 2 of these, 2 halves to make one, and you can see I'm making a golf ball. So my mold here, I could have made more golf balls in here. For this, to make it simple, I'm making one golf ball, okay? And the old method was this end here would be capped, okay? It'd be flat. This end here on the other side of it would have the indent. Alright, then we go to the second one. The indent would be on this side, and this side would be flat. So basically it takes 2 halves to make one golf ball. Okay? So if it takes 2 of these to make one, and I add 2 more, which would be 4 of these altogether, 4 molds, I'm making 2 golf balls. Correct? So with this method here, if I have 4, we're going to ignore these other 2 down here. If I have 4 of these, how many is going to make? Okay, remember the old method, I'm only getting 2 golf balls. So anywhere there's in between these gaps, it's going to make 1. Okay, now we're going to stop. Let me see if I can just hide some of these out of here so I can show you. Okay, there we go. And like I said, 2 halves to make 1, another 2 halves to make 2 golf balls. Okay, we got 4 molds, okay? So with this method, with the double-sided ones, if you look in between here, that's where it's going to make a golf ball, okay? Right there. So anywhere there's an intersection, that's going to be 1. In the middle, it's going to be 2. And now it's going to make 3 golf balls out of 4 molds. The other way, you're only getting 2 golf balls. Well, that might not sound a whole lot, but when you start adding these up, let me show you here. Alright, now I got 6 this way, stacked across the bottom. I have 6 stacked up across the top. So basically, now, the old method, let's say, 1, 2, makes 1 golf ball. 3, 4, makes 2 golf balls. 5, 6, makes 3 golf balls. Alright, each row makes 3 golf balls. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18 golf balls. Okay, basically 3 across times 6 is 18. Now we're taking the double-sided ones. Remember I said where the gaps are at is the golf ball. We're adding more. We're figuring, you know, if you thought 1 was a big deal, anytime in between her is going to make a golf ball. So now I'm going to have 1 in the middle, 2 in the middle, 3 in the middle, 4 in the middle. Now I'm making 5 golf balls out of 6 of these molds. Okay, 5 golf balls across the bottom. So I got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. 5 times 6 is 30. The old method, I'm getting 18. Is that making sense yet? Well, okay, I hope it does. So the more you stack, the more you're going to get. And I'm going to take a little breather and I'm going to show you how to stack these to even make it more understanding and how to make more golf balls, okay, in a different way. Okay, it depends how many that you put in a stack that makes a big factor of how many you can make. course, if you add more, it's going to make more golf balls. But sometimes the math, when you think something is one way, it turns out to be another. I'm going to get ready to show you. As my first row, I'm getting 5 golf balls right through here, and I set a total of 30. Okay, so each row is 5. Okay, if I would to take this row here, okay, we're going to move it. Okay, here's 5, and I'm just going to duplicate that and slide that over. Alright, and I got 2 sets of 5. That's 10, right? I should be able to make 10 golf balls out of that row, right? Wrong. Alright, let me show you. Remember, I said at any time there's in between these is a golf ball. So basically I had 5 in this row. I should have 5 in here. That should be 10. But you know, when I add one, I actually got me an extra golf ball right here. So basically it's like 1 golf ball, 2 golf balls, 3 golf balls, 4, 5, 6 golf balls right here where I split them, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now I'm getting 11. As you can see, the way these things are stacked, the more that you're going to get. Just because they're stacked in, you know, a set of 6, and you think you're going to double up by doing separate stacks, but if you keep these all in a line instead of saying I'm going to make a set of 6 and make 6 rows up and 6 rows across, you're actually losing that way. Sometimes you may not want to stack them that high, you know, it might throw little things off. But anyway, do you get the idea how that works? So basically, the way these are stacked is a factor. Alright, in this next step I had loaded up some stars here. And like I said, you can now multiply these. I got it upside down. But anyway, you can multiply these by adding more into the, you know, a single mold. Alright, remember that. So basically, I'm going to go over a few things. Now, if you notice this mold right here, the star one, it's not as thick as the other one, but it's square, okay? This is going to allow me to interchange my star molds with my golf ball molds if I want to. It's also going to do a couple other things. Okay, I have a star here, and I'm going to do 2 halves. Well, it's going to be symmetrical. It's going to be out to the left, and it's going to be out to the right. Now, I notice a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, where the money seems to be at is rubber fishing lures. They're small, they're easy to make, they're cheap to make, but they're expensive to buy. And, you know, they got one that's like a crawfish. Some of these crawfish, it lays flat on here, and they do a mold out of it, and they'll do like 4 of these, okay? It'll have a top and a bottom that will poof out to each side. And sometimes on some of these crawfish, they'll have a flat bottom to it. So this is what this spacer is made for right here. It's an end cap. It can be used for a few things. So you'll want to get a couple of these printed out. Alright, you notice these don't have a registration key mark that pops out on these molds because it could cause a problem. You know, I have a square here and a circle here. Now if you start sliding these through a rod, there's like no way that you could screw this up, because the square is only going to go through the square, and the circle is going to have to go through the circle rod. So they can only go on one way. But I can interchange any of these at any time. For example, alright, let's say I have a crawfish on here, you know, a bait that I want to mold, a rubber mold. Okay, it's going to be a cold mold for rubber, and I'm going to make it double-sided. So I would just plainly just leave this alone. I would put an end cap here. Okay, and let's say I'm doing this whole row across the bottom. We're not even going to worry about it up there. And I would put an end cap here. This is what I call an end cap, and a spacer, and it can do a couple things. That way when you snatch it down with a vise or whatever you use, this 2x4 to hold it together, it's not going to screw up your ends here. They're always going to be safe. So basically, all right, when I squeeze all these together and I run all these square rods through there, it's going to keep it so it's not messy and I don't have to keep on holding them. And then I squeeze them all together. Now I'm going to have a bunch of crawfish. It's going to be symmetrical. The bottom's not going to be flat. So what is this spacer also going to be used for? You can put these spacers in between, okay? So basically, if I put this spacer, okay, pull this one out. Let me see if I can do this here. And I pull this one out. Then I take the spacer and I put it over in between that, okay? What's going to happen is I'm going to have one side that's going to poof out and one side's going to be flat. Alright? Now this is going to allow me to use different ways. Be symmetrical or flat on one side. And I can put one here, here, here. Anywhere there's a space I can put in, you know, whatever I want. Well, typically if you was, you know, make a set, you know, you want to do them all at once, you know. Flat on one side for all my crawfish. On this row, you know, I might have it symmetrical up on the top. But here's another thing is, all right, let me Control Z this. Now, for some reason, let's say this whole row was my stars, okay? Now I could put the spacer right here, right? And let's pretend these stars are not here anymore. And I want to switch over and start making golf balls here for some reason. And I want to make the rest of them golf balls. Let's say I had an order. They didn't want to order a bunch of stars, but they want to order a bunch of golf balls. So anytime that I want to, I'll put that spacer right here. I'll make my stars over here. Then I'll make 2 rows of golf balls. So even though that they're 2 separate, you know, insert molds, I can still use them because they're both square. It doesn't matter how thick they are, but as long as they're square and they're all lined up. If that makes sense. Alright, pause the video. And you want to print out some of these, you know, you can call them end caps, spacers, or whatever you want. But like I said, they serve 3 purposes, not just one. One is the end cap, okay, so it doesn't damage the end when you clamp, you know, all your molds together, okay. They also can be used as spacers, okay, and that's if you wanted to make one-sided flat. That's you know, that gives you 2 options. If you decide to switch to a different mold, you can put a spacer in and start switching over from making stars to making golf balls. So that gives you 3 options. So you want to get quite a few of these printed out. And as you notice, all these molds that I do, as you can see right here, I kind of have a reason why I use this. I don't know if I said this before. Most injection molds have registration to align these up that pop out of the mold somewhere right here. They insert and, you know, and they insert to the other one, and then they have one that pops out and they kind of like snap together. The reason why I don't do that is because switching different molds, your registration keys are probably not going to line up. And if you could get it to line up, you're going to have to do a little, you know, it's going to a little engineering to make sure everything's lined up. Just by having these slots, we can use these as registrations, but it's not going to affect my star ones with my golf ball ones, because all I'm doing is sliding the rod through here, and they're all going to line up. I don't have to worry about somewhere else on this mold my registration key not lining up, my star registration keys lining up with my golf ball ones, if that makes sense. So no registration keys, just some slots, maybe a circle here, a square here. Maybe if you want to do them all the way around, or not all the way around, at least 3. And maybe, make a triangle, whatever you want, or just leave it like it is. It doesn't matter. This way will allow you, that's the only way it can only go on one way. So even though a lot of this stuff is eyeball and I can see where things go, and I know where I insert my liquid stuff through here for my casting, I know it should be always on the top, and that kind of gives me an indication how things are lined up. But this is foolproof, where they're only going to go on one way, because if you don't, you can't take a square rod and put it in a round hole. So it's kind of like a no-brainer. All right, I'm going to kind of go over this about how these are stacked, how you can get extra ones. Let's say, remember I was getting 5 in a set of these right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Let's say I was clamping all these together. I'm going to get, I'm going to get 5 molds, and I'm going to get 4 stars each. All right, and then I take this set here and I do the same thing. It takes 2 clamps to do these. So these first set are clamped with 2 clamps. The second set, which is going to be 5 with 2 clamps, and the third set we're going to ignore the top one, and the third step we're going to get another 5, and it's going to take 6 clamps total. All right, and we're going to come up with 5, 10, and 15. But it's going to be consistent, a little time consuming, because now I got to handle all these and use 6 clamps when I could probably use 2 or 3 on this whole set and come up with more. So remember, I'm getting 5, 10, 15 on separate. Now if I was to do this whole set, this whole row of 3, and put them together, remember, we're getting 5, 10, and 15. But remember, anytime that we stack them this way, we're getting an extra one here, which is 16, and we're getting an extra one here when it's 17. All right, and now I'm just using 17 of these, and I'm still using 2 clamps instead of 6. So let's say I made this first row here and clamped them together. I'm getting 17. Let's say I take this top row here, do the same thing. Okay, I would be getting 17. 17 and 17 is 34. You may not want to stack them more than what I got them, but let's say, for instance, you made a little chute and like a square box and started sliding these down. It's really easy to handle, and you'll be able to, handle and press all these without a lot of movement, and they're all lining up good. You design something great, because this is just a replica, nothing perfect. Just to give you an idea. And let's say you made a box. Now you're able to put all these together all in one. Remember, we was getting 17 here. We should be getting 17 here, which is 34. But here's the deal is, now since we got them stacked like this, instead of 34, we have, where we added one, we're adding a space right here. So now we're going to get 35 of these. So keep that in mind. Another thing is, like I said, these spacers that we're using for the end caps, they also have a purpose to making them flat. On one side, let's say I was doing some crawfish, okay? Let's say I was doing crawfish in here, and I want to make them flat on one side, and let's say I have, I have 4 crawfish right here, but I want to make them flat on one side. Now you got to keep this in mind though. If you put a spacer in between each one of these, I'm going to use this gap here so that you can see, just a flat spacer. Well, basically what's going to happen, I'm going to get a set of 4 on this side, and I'm going to get a set of 4 on this side. So actually, I'm actually going to be able to double that up again. I'm going to be doubling, my items now, since one's flat, and I'm putting that spacer there. Does that make sense? Okay, I paused the video and I loaded up this one that I'm going to be using the resin printer on when I get a chance. I have not tested any of this. I don't see why it wouldn't work. I mean, everything seems logical. But when I made, here's a little tip about this, which I like about it a lot. As you can see, this golf ball right here on this half, and versus this one on this side here half. Well, actually, they're almost touching each other on the inside, back to back. This is going to help on the volume where I don't spend a lot of extra more money on, over printing this, so that, and these are going to be printed solid. What's good about this design on this box right here, if you're new to, slices or anything, for slicing your 3D objects, and a slicer program, I'm going to be using Box. I'm going to be using a solid infill, and that's going to make this completely solid. Another good thing about this, if you haven't noticed, a lot of these things that are being printed out is just got more supports, and you got to pull them off and you got to clean them. Far as I can see right now, the way these are booling in, they're not going to need any support whatsoever. I can just print these out and go. Like I said, I haven't tested it, and I don't see, even with the stars, it should follow through without needing any support. It's going to be a factor how, where I want this to drain out, so when I print this, let's point up here so I can see a little bit better. So when I put this on the build plate here, it always prints upside down. And since I'm going to have this where I'm pouring my my liquid through to get inside the ball here, the golf ball, basically you want to have this when it prints up, to have the resin to drip out this hole, because if you don't and you print it the wrong way, your resin's probably just going to stick in here. So it's something you're going to have to experiment. So I wouldn't go ahead and just if you got extra filament, and you don't care about it, go ahead and print you a bunch of these out. But here's a good thing is they're all square, they're all the same thing. So no matter if I just print this one, which might take, let's say 4 hours, since they're all the same height, I can print all these, even though there's a lot more of these. I think, was it 30 of them? They're all it's still gonna print out 4 hours. It goes by the height. So if you want to experiment with that, but it's just going to cost you a little extra material. I'd get you some cheap resin, and if you want to, if you're not worried about it and you got plenty of resin, just go ahead and print you some out. So that's just a little tip on that. Below this video, I'm going to have a document that you can download and read. It's at the very bottom. Okay. It's going to give you some contact information if you want to contact me, a little donation if you want to. I think it's a pretty good idea. If you're a company or a hobbyist, hobbyists, they don't mind making a little donation. If you're a manufacturer and you're making $100,000 a year, and all of a sudden you start using this method and you're making $150,000, just say you and your buddy are, I wouldn't see a problem about making donations. Or if you like my idea or you have something that you might interest me in, you should use my contact and shoot me a line. I do not, and probably won't, I try my best. Normally all my videos, it's just too hard for me to keep up. You get your people, I've never had anybody like most people, they want to, always disagree with what you got to say. I've never really had that problem. I don't think I ever will. Pretty much all my stuff that I've ever posted through the years, gotten great feedback. Almost none. I think I got more bad feedback about how I pronounce than I do things. So keep that in mind. And I want to go over a few of these things right here, and I'm probably going to go over and. I'll watch the video for your feedbacks for a couple of days. Then it's time for me to move on. So basically, I already read a couple of this stuff to you, and it says, and I'll just kind of read this. I know it's a little boring, but if this is going to benefit you, all I'm asking you to stick around for it just a little bit longer, and just kind of go over a few things here. I'm going to go, I'm see if I remember writing. I'm going to go over aluminum molds and 3D resin molds. In this example, we're going to make one object. Injection mold takes two molds to make one object. We already found out that that was the old method. This new method, like I just described before, all right, it says this new method of double-sided injection, okay, which I'm using double boolean molds, takes two molds, but when stacked can make more object, as I showed you that before. Then the old method, you make two molds to make one object. And like I said, I use a 3D resin printer and have not tested this yet. Like I said, I don't see a reason why it wouldn't work. This is what I plan on doing just because I haven't tried it yet. First, I'm going to use, they got this, this is more towards the resin printer people, because there's a lot of them. It's more affordable for the resin printing and the material. There is a resin made by Soraya Tech. I have used this stuff before, and no doubt in my mind, this has to be, they have stuff very specific for certain things. And anything they got, I'm telling you what, when I seen the bottle, when I first seen it on Amazon, it looks like, the rest of the bottles. They're all brown. Someone put a sticker on it. And it's just being resold under another name. This stuff is, they got people that back this stuff up, and it has been tested. They have resins that can take a lot of heat. I think the one they have is 220 degrees. I think they call it Celsius. Fahrenheit's like 400. You'd have to look that up. They have resin hard as a rock. I know I tested it by 3D printing a part, and once cured, could not even break it with a hammer. For my tests, I'll be using the hard resin because I'll be filling the molds with cold casting. That means I don't need a material that's going to, like they might need a aluminum mold, because the reason aluminum molds is sometimes their rubberized casting takes a lot of heat, and this could probably work, but it would probably warp after a while. So that's why I'm sticking with cold casting on there. Another thing is, not only did I beat on it with a hammer, I let it sit on the build plate too long, and I had on the printer, and 3D printer, and I took the build plate off the next day, and my object was on there. I almost gave up. I had hit it so many times with a putty knife to get underneath there, and a hammer, it would not come off. They've actually tested some of this stuff that's so durable. It's like they compared, a guy took and designed a nut and put one of them things that can gauge the pressure on when you put a lug nut on the tire, so it reaches so it can reach the specs. And it took 90 pounds of pressure, which is a lot, to put a lug nut down. And this material would not even, it broke it right at around 90 pounds, okay? Very durable, okay? For my printing slicing program, I'll be using Chichi Box. Kind of always use that. And there's another one I use, okay? I got a bunch of printers and only used one so far. For my mold shape, I'll be using Boon. I use ZBrush. Been using ZBrush. I've been, I know a lot about, all kinds of shapes and all kinds of stuff. I know about modeling. I know about making things. It's not like my first time. I think I've done 3D over 15 years, probably more than that. And like I said before, I'm using the infill will be solid, okay? They do have infills that, that gets like a honeycomb shape. This is the same material, but I want it solid because I'm going to be putting in, a vise with a little bit of pressure, but not a lot of pressure, okay? And with Chichibots, and since I do the booling, you won't need these overhang supports. Probably, I'm going to say about 95% what I'm doing in my objects that I'm using, and you can check it in Chichibots, you're not going to need them supports. I've seen people make these little miniatures, and that's ain't nothing but supports all around them. You can't even see what the part looks like. It's just like, boy, that's just like a waste of a lot of time. This method, since it's going to be a mold, it's going to be a lot stronger than just printing them. I can make many of the objects over and over without printing them. Okay, since these, it's much faster to make. All of the printing time versus a few minutes of mold time to make new objects. What I mean about this is, as I said before, now that I've made my molds, that might have took 4 hours, and I made 25 parts. Now in the molds I can make them in a few minutes, the same 25 parts, or I can throw them back in the printer, make the same object, let's say my golf balls, but now it's going to take me another 4 hours. So this will be a lot faster, a lot stronger, a lot of benefits to this way. And using a printer, resin printer, it's going to be cheap. This is, it ain't expensive at all. And another thing I like about this is when I was looking around the internet, and as I said this before, it seems like one of the things, you can always like see these little objects you can buy. You get them for $1 or $2. Not very profitable. These little rubber lures, man, you go to the store and try to buy a good lure and tell me what you think about the price on that one. So you got to go where the money's at if you want to make some money. Why I choose the resin molds over aluminum molds is because aluminum molds have to be custom made and cost a lot. And for cold casting, I'm not putting heat to the mold. And aluminum molds you can heat. With aluminum mold you can, okay, for the heat. Heat warps and cold casting it doesn't. So that's a factor. If you don't need aluminum, don't use it. You've seen how many that I had out there for my molds. Trust me, it would cost you an arm and a leg to go have them custom milled out. Let's say you use rubberized that takes heat to melt for the injection. You can also buy rubberized material, basically the resin, that you can inject that don't need heat. Okay, I'm going to go in the next section and pause this one. Alright, some aluminum molds for injection may take a lot of heat. That's why they use aluminum. To help the warping, they may make the mold kind of thick. So let's say the indent shape on one side and the thickness on the other side, that'd be the flat side, is 1/2 inch thick. And you have 2 molds, right? So now in total, if you take half and half together, you end up with 1 inch. But with a double-sided one, you only need a 1/2 inch like you normally would, not 1 inch. So you're wasting, not wasting, but you're saving by making double-sided molds. Aluminum is expensive, so if you can shave off a 1/2 inch on each mold, that is going to, the price of aluminum that will cut your cost, like I said right here. So if you can cut your cost by, not having it that thick, because now you don't need it because you use a double-sided mold, so you're cutting your cost. And you're going to almost double the product that it makes. So basically what I'm saying is, if you do your math together real quick, you can see, I just showed you a few. You can make into the thousands, let's say lures, within, I would say less than, 10 minutes. I mean, if you had 2 guys working together, and you can make a lot. I mean, a lot with this method. You're almost doubling, you're almost doubling the work. I mean, not the work, but you're almost doubling the items that are coming out of the molds. You're not just making, let's say 10 at a time. Now you're making almost twice that much. Okay, so remember, as I said before, I think one you were making 18 versus one making 30, I believe. So then you start multiplying, and that gets to be a lot. And if you already have original aluminum injection molds, okay, let's say you already have a set of these, and you may have enough room to mill the other side to make double. Well, let me see if I can screw that over. Double-sided injection molds. If they already have mold registered, it may not work. So what I'm saying about this. So if you already have aluminum molds and they're kind of thick on the flat side, you possibly could reuse that mold, okay, and and carve and mill into that side and do the injection, double-sided injection molds and convert them over. But if they already have the registration keys, it may not work. When I say registration keys, that means the inserts that line them together. That's why they pop out and on one side, then they insert on the other side on 2 halves of the mold. That's why I came up with the idea of having a square hole that goes all the way through and a circle hole. Not only that, it's not really a registration key, it just aligns them up and there's no mistakes. You can just test this by one. test it first by just making one. If if you're not, if you don't know what you're doing. And as I said here, there's going to be a link below the video. All right, and you can download this text file. And as I said here, I normally don't pop out and asking for a lot. I usually just put it down and let you read it later on some of my videos, because most of all my stuff, I just give it away. I never ask for nothing. I never have asked it for anything, and I don't like to put it in a video. But I think this is a really great idea. And like I said before, if you're a company or you're making a good profit, why not? If you're making $100,000 a year, now you're making $150,000 a year because, hey, you got an idea and you're using it. That'd be appreciable. And as I said here, if you have any questions, or any ideas, you can contact me. And like I said, the objects that you've seen out here are just mimics of kind of the molds that I would kind of make. Would I make them like that? I would definitely make them all the same shape for sure. But as far as some other things that I would do, like I said, I had to make this quick, and it was almost perfect. And I wouldn't say almost, but this is kind of like the general idea of what's going on. So all right, just before I finish up here, I wanted to go over a couple things, just because I'm showing you a method and telling you one thing. It may apply different if you're using different materials, you're using heat, you're using cold. As an example, I said, you can make them real fast, but if I'm using a slow curing resin to make my molds, I'm going to have to wait. If I use a high temp one or something that dries fast, I don't have to wait as long. So that's going to, you got to keep things in factor. What you're making, what you're putting in it. And like I said, I'm going to be using that resin that gets really hard. And what I'm going to be using, I'm going to be using either that, or I know that the Soraya resin, you can actually, they have all the same kind of structures to them. I don't know how to word it, but you can actually take any of their products and mix them together. So, and you can mix the heat one with the hard one, okay, or vice versa, or with any of the ones you got. I read or seen a video on that, which was pretty cool, because sometimes mixing different resins with different other resin companies, it just may backfire on you. Another thing is, I'm going to be using somewhat of a transparent, translucent resin, is because when I start shooting these molds, I would like to see what's happening. I want to make sure the mold's getting filled all the way, and it can kind of give you an idea. And a good thing about that is on cleanup time, if it's translucent and I'm using a blue pigment or something for some reason, it's going to show up. So it's going to let me know, as long as I'm not using a transparent to fill it, hey, I still got some blue specks or whatever from the old material, and I need to clean it off, or I go into the next step. And what's good about the resin right here, hey, I know they don't last as long as aluminum, but if I, like I said, if I had to get all these made in aluminum and milled out, it cost me an arm and a leg. Versus, let's say this lasted me for a month. Well, heck, I can print these out again in 4 hours, and and last me another month. And you can make thousands and thousands of molds. Probably you're probably making so much molds you won't know what to do. But then again, resin does get kind of expensive, so it's something you want to toy with. And they do, I'm using a solid mold. They got ones that I'm sure that you can get. Like if I was going to make an item like a golf ball, and I don't want to make it solid, they got what they call a thickness wall. You can do that, but I'm not going to get into any of that right now. All my stuff, if I was to sell something, I want to make it like I would want to buy it. I don't want, if I have a golf ball and I want to hit it, I don't want to have some thickness to it. I want to be solid all the way through, or you kind of get the general idea of what I'm talking about. Or if it don't have to be a golf ball, it could be a ring or something. I don't want it a thick wall through it. I want it completely solid. I don't want a thing to break. And some of these resins, you'd think, resin, I mean, there's epoxy out there. I mean, they sell stuff you would not believe what it can do. I mean, it's just hard as metal. So, there's no limit to what you can do. So anyway, I think this is going to wrap it up, spread the word, and tell you what I'd like to see. It might take me a while to finish up what I'm doing, and I probably will be making. I don't do lures, but I seen a video. I forgot the name of the guy here. Something the world's worst fisherman. I kind of got the idea because small object lures are expensive. People buy them. I'm no fisherman, but I do know about fishing stuff. So that's kind of gave me the idea. He was making, I think, 6 at a set. And a lot of times, when you go buy stuff online, I notice that a lot of stuff comes in an 8-pack. So if you make a mold, you make molds of 8. That way you can keep track. You can, let's say, hey, I'm going to make 8 in each package. So when I take that set together, I don't got to count them. I already know I got 8 in there. And I can put them in the bag. I don't have to count them. So it keeps it organized, kind of like that. But anyway, back to, if you do this and you think it's a good idea and you want to try it out, I would like to see your video and and give me your feedback on it. It might work out for you. It might not work out for you. And if it doesn't work out for you, I might tell you why it doesn't work out for you. But then again, that's like anything else. If it's not printed out right, you may be your printer's fault. It might not be your fault. Same way with milling. I've seen people that got to have their stuff so precise within tenths, whatever they call it, and to come to find out after a few months later, they got recalls. It was still a tad too much off. I'm talking within half a hair length. And some of that stuff needs to be right on the money. I'm not going to get that picky with my stuff, but I want my stuff to line up. I don't, I'm trying to get rid of any kind of imperfections. I also have videos on. Well, I don't have video, but I posted on a forum where you can make this really slick on the inside. If you want to make your, let's say you want to make your golf balls. You can see it's kind of fascinated. Let's say I want it like real smooth. Just some kind of plastic ball or something. I want it real smooth. You can actually once it pulls out of the vat with the resin, you can let it dry up for a couple hours. And most people run off, and the first thing they do, they throw it in the alcohol, okay, and they clean it. Right? I'm not going to have any supports. I don't need to clean it. And if I leave that resin on there, okay, then after I can let it completely drip off and I don't got no drips, what I can do is I can cure it then, put it outside. Well, not outside, you can probably get trash in there. Maybe put it in a curing lamp, ultraviolet light or wherever it takes, LED, and cure it. This will make it really, really smooth. Now, I did an Eiffel Tower, okay, and it starts off to have kind of big holes. When it reaches the top, the holes are so small, and I'm telling you, so small, you probably couldn't fit a hair through there. And the reason why I choose to use resin is because if you let it sit without it drying, it's just like water, it'll eventually, most of it will almost all come off, which you want without no drips. Okay, and that's one way of making it smooth. I've seen people put spray paint, sand it, and all kinds of stuff, which is, that's okay. But for what I was making, them holes were so small. If I was to take any kind of spray paint to there to fill any kind of, let's say, imperfections like layer lines or anything, well, guess what's going to happen to those small holes? That paint's going to fill them holes, and it's not going to be a hole no more. Normally with resin, It should dry all the way through. You could like spin it out, you know, and let it, you know, when it gets almost dry, just to make sure all that resin doesn't get, you know, make sure it's all out of them holes, you know. And I've seen people where they just take it, clean it, they throw more resins on it, kind of like what I suggested to do. And it's really not necessary to clean it and throw resin back on it with a brush. The only reason that you might want to do that is if you pull it out of the vat and you notice, hey, I got trash. I see a hair here, I see a speck here. You may need to turn around and go ahead and rinse it off. Check it out and put some resin on there. There's all kinds of ways. You don't have to have a paintbrush to put it on there. If you want to, that's fine. One of my suggestions would be like you can get these pressurized cans that you can put resin in. It's actually made for paint, and it's like a CO2 cartridge. It has air in it. You put your resin in there. I've never tried it, but I know it works for paint. And just spray it on there, just like, you know, like putting resin back on there. Let it sit. Spin it. Maybe turn it a little bit. Spin it after an hour or two. Then when you think everything looks all good, no drips, no sags or whatever, set that, you know, set it to cure. You know, set it somewhere that no trash is going to get back in there. I made this idea, I don't know, a while back ago, and it just seems like, you know, it's all documented through the forum. I think it was quite a while back ago, and it's just now it just seems like, I don't know if somebody just thought they came up with the idea or took the idea, but now it just seems like a new thing. Well, I'm doing about this for a long time, and I got all kinds of methods. I mean, I've done miniatures where I've actually took a what's called a dental camera, and I ain't kidding you. These little cameras are cheap. They're made to stick in your mouth and look around. You know, this is kind of like what the dentist does. You can buy them personally for like $30, something like that. And if you put one on your arm, this is how much it magnifies it. If you put one on your arm and you got hair, that hair looks so big because you're hooking it to your monitor. It looks like a forest. I mean, the hairs look thick. So when I took that camera and did what I did with this resin, I cleaned it up real good, and I wanted it smooth, because if you make it smooth on the inside with the resin, your outcome when it pops out of the mold is going to be smooth too. And when I looked at the layer lines, not, you know, I tried to feel in my fingernail, I tried to look through the camera, I could not find nothing. If I was to show you this, because I made one with some really shiny resin, it was so shiny you couldn't see no layer lines. I think I ended up putting, after I did that, a coat of fingernail urethane on it, and I showed somebody, and I made it, and it was been dry for 2 days. It was so shiny and so slick. When I handed it to him, I had it on a mirror. It was a picture. It was a 3D object of a rhino, and I said, "Be careful, it's still wet. It ain't dried yet." And they would hold it like it was. They didn't want to drop it or anything. They were holding it both hands, looking at it. Oh, that's nice. I was like, "You can grab it. It's dry," and they all thought it was still wet. So there's all kinds of things that you can do, but I'm just going over a few basic things. So that was just a kind of little tip. But anyway, thank you very much.